Hi there, my name is Kendrick and welcome to ENTP Male. And if you don't know, I'm that ENTP male. Well, yeah, no shit, Kendrick. Anyways, after a string of bad luck consuming really horrible books and audiobooks, I finally said, thank the Lord, and I'm not even religious. And I say that because I finally consumed a good audiobook, and that's 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. I highly recommend the audiobook because he is so authentic in the audiobook. There are times when he got really emotional and he even sounded like he was crying, which I really appreciated. As mentioned in previous videos where I talk about books and audiobooks that I consume, it's always good to consume a book or audiobook that is written by somebody that shares some of the same function stack as you. That way, it's more easy for you to relate to the information they're giving you and you can actually use it. So for Jordan Peterson, I share the extrovert intuition and the introvert sensing with him. As you know, he is an ENTP, consume, play, blast, sleep, double feminine. And if you start listening to this audiobook, the first thing you'll notice is he channel changes a lot. And he'll also say things like the paperwork or taxes, those are the enemies, which is control, right? Like the big EP problem. And for me, I really related to the NE and SI axis part of the book. Now, a lot of people would accuse him of being scattered in the book, but actually that's not true because he uses the NE and he'll channel change really quickly. But he does have a point when it comes to channel changing. He's using all those different stories when he channel changes to make a point. So for people that are used to more NI books where there is one concept and they use extrovert sensing to validate that concept, this is a little bit different where he has one fact, but he has a lot of stories and concepts to go back up that one fact. So I'm just gonna read off the notes that I took from my cell phone about this book that I wanted to share with you because this book is truly a really good audiobook and I highly recommend it. After going through a bunch of terrible ones, it's such a breath of fresh air to finally consume a good audiobook. So the first one that I read that he said is truth about what motivates you even if it seems stupid. So what he means by that is what motivates you and someone else is different, and usually the reason why you're motivated by something is completely illogical, and that's okay. He said that's perfectly fine. So in life, it's good to find out what motivates you even if it's really stupid and dumb, and use that to motivate you to get the job done at whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. The next one he mentioned is that it's easier to do things for others because of our perspective of ourselves. So I like that saying because I did notice that for me, it's easier for me to do things for other people. But for him to say that, and he is self-above tribe, it seems like for a lot of people, except for maybe the IPs, it is easier for you to do things for other people first, just because he said that your opinion of other people is usually better than your opinion of yourself. So basically, I think what he's trying to get at is pretend you are someone else when you're trying to help yourself so that you can help yourself effectively with more motivation. The next one on the list that I took notes on is he said that alphas get all the resources, so it's better to strive to be an alpha than a beta. So that one is a no-brainer where, yes, if you look at the animal kingdom, the alpha, whether that be male or female, tend to get all the resources. So this was a no-brainer. My favorite part of the book is when he used SI and FE together to give parental advice. Now, I don't have any kids, but one day I do plan on having kids, so when I was listening to it, he gave me some ideas of what I would do one day when I do have kids. So what he said is, do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. So it's important to nurture them, but set rules and boundaries. Focus on getting your child's respect instead of being like and being the friend of your child. So in this book, he shared a story of trying to feed his son and giving his son positive reinforcement whenever his son would do something good. And it took him a long time to get his son to do what he wanted, which was good for his son. But after a while, the son did respect him for never giving up on him for Jordan Peterson to get him to do the right thing. He also said that it's also good to put your kid in timeout if your kid is angry because it gives your kid a chance to beat anger. And you want your kid to beat their own anger. You want to let the kid win. So I thought that was such a good mindset to have. And it was also very practical, like use time out to make sure that your kid gets over their own anger. Another thing that he said that's really good is he said that to limit the rules because too much rules causes frustration, and it's important to use the least force necessary when you have to enforce the rules. So one of the examples that he gave was his kid was being a troublemaker when they were out socializing with his friends. And he said that when his kid started acting up, his punishment was a flick on the head of the kid. So it's not enough to really hurt him, but it's enough to get him stunned and confused at what happened, and usually the kid will get the message and they'll stop acting out. So I think that's really good, and I've heard David Chan say before that usually EPs would be the best at enforcing rules because they know what the least and the minimum amount of rules that is required to get the job done so that people don't feel over controlled, but they still will do the right thing. This next one that I took notes on, I really relate to because I definitely need to work on this. And he said, set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. So basically, before you lash out that things are not going well for you, he said just clean your house and make sure that everything's in order. And if everything's in order, then okay, fine, you can lash out. So for me, I look around my place, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of things that are messy. So yes, I don't have the right to go complain about the bigger picture of my life if I can't even organize just my physical environment. This next one is very interesting. So he said, ask your new neighbor for help to gauge if you can become friends, because he said that sharing creates friendship and those who can't share will not be real friends. So I thought that was an interesting thing that he said that, because I do have friends that I know won't share with me, and it makes me think, wait a minute, am I really friends with them? Because they never share anything and we're still friends. So it's a weird thought for sure. And I think there's a lot of truth to what Jordan Peterson has said. So now I'm gonna question my friendship now with other people. Now this next one is very interesting because I don't relate to it, but I think if you have someone that has the same function stack as him, you would relate to it. So he said, meaning is something that comes to you and it's not something you can produce as an act of will. So I think that's very interesting he said that, because I think for him, his play is NF, right? So that means for him to find his purpose, he would have to ping off other people. Now, if you have a different personality type, such as someone that is an INTJ or someone that shares that function stack, for them, their sleep is NF, so they can figure out their meaning themselves from within. For me, as an ENFP or other types that is the same type as me, then my NF is consume, so I get meaning from new experiences. And then you look at the other people, like INFJ, ENFJs, and people that have the same function stack as those people, then their NF is from blast. So basically, their meaning or purpose is to teach. So one interesting thing that Jordan Peterson said in the audiobook is, if you can't reveal to other people your true self, then you can't see your true self. So I'm just paraphrasing what he said in the audiobook, but that's an interesting thing to talk about or to think about. Because yes, have you tried revealing yourself fully to other people? And what have happened after you did that? Did you become more authentic? And did you live your life more fully? And then did you see your true self after you're able to live your life fully? So it's just an interesting thought experiment that might be worthwhile to experiment in real life. He said lying also weakens your character, and I think that one is a no-brainer. Obviously it does. The next section that I took notes on is be precise in your speech. So the example that he gave was fixing your sex life, which I thought was very interesting. I don't remember exactly the details, but he said that when you're trying to fix something, be precise with your communication, because the only way you can solve that problem is if you know the exact problem. So if you can't communicate the exact problem, then you can't fix that exact problem. So Jordan Peterson is an info-dominant person, and for him to say that makes perfect sense. I relate to what he said, but I think energy dominant people will probably mess this up. So it's a good practice for those who are energy dominant to really pinpoint the exact word for their exact problem. This next one is very interesting to think about. And he said, don't bother children when they are skateboarding. And a lot of parents will be paranoid that their kids are skateboarding because they can hurt themselves. But actually what Jordan Peterson said is facing danger builds competence. And he said that the more competent you are, the more safe you are. And I thought, oh my God, that's so true. Because I have traveled in countries around the world, such as Vietnam, where they would be riding their scooter in the most craziest traffic. And you would think that they would kill each other all the time. But no, it's an organized chaos and everyone knows what's going on and everyone is pretty much safe. So yes, you can get used to the danger and have competence to navigate your way around it. And if you try to overprotect someone from getting the practice to weave their way through chaos, then they'll never have the competence to face chaos. And whenever chaos happens, they won't know how to react to it. So that's even more dangerous, according to him, which I totally agree. The next set of notes that I took was women marry across or above status. And he said that the reason why women marry above their status or equal is because they are vulnerable when they have kids and they need a man that is strong and or resourceful. So that makes perfect sense from an evolutionary standpoint. Because yes, if you have a kid, then you want to make sure there's enough resources to keep that kid safe and yourself safe as well. So that makes a lot of sense, and I don't have any argument to that point, but I thought it's a good one to think about. This next note that I took was really good. I really like it actually, and I think this is one of the notes that I took that I can definitely apply into my day job when dealing with difficult people. So he said, when it comes to assertiveness training, when you assert yourself to other people will object. And there's gonna be 4 objections that will make you and that other person feel uncomfortable. But if you can get through those 4 objections, then you can get your point across. So I thought that was a really interesting thing to think about, because oftentimes after I get an objection, I usually give up after first or second try. So he said, never give up. Just keep trying until you can get through 4 objections. It'll be very uncomfortable. It'll be very awkward, but you can't give up and you gotta go through that 4 objections. So the last part of the audiobook that he covered was his daughter, Mikhaila, and her struggles with arthritis. And for that part, it's not that I learned anything per se, but I really respected how Jordan Peterson handled the situation with his daughter, and it makes perfect sense why they have such a good relationship now that they're both older, because they were really there for each other through the hardest of times. So when Mikhaila was struggling with arthritis, Jordan Peterson was there, and when Jordan Peterson had his crash, Mikhaila was there. So I think that's a very good model of how a family should be, which is being there for each other. So anyways, I'm very happy to have gone through this audiobook, 12 Rules for Life, and I do recommend it to everyone out there. And if you think he's scattered, like I said at the start, he does have a point to his scatteredness. So just listen to his stories without judgment and wait until you finish everything before you can make a conclusion of what you think about his concepts, ideas, and the audiobook itself. Anyways, that's about it for this video. I'll see you next time.